Hi, and welcome to S for Science. And has it ever happened to you that on the day that you were in a hurry, you got all the red traffic lights? Or that precisely on your day off, it started to rain? Or that precisely what you didn't study for the exam ended up being in the exam? The idea that if something can go wrong, it will end up going wrong is what is known as Murphy's Law. The origin of this law dates back to the 1940s when a plan called MX981 was developed at Edwards Air Base, United States. The plan was intended to test human resistance to G-forces during rapid deceleration, and they used a rocket on rails with a pair of brakes at one end. The initial tests were done with a dummy tied to a chair, but the ones that followed were made with a person, Jean-Paul Stapp, who replaced the dummy. This questioned the precision of the instruments used to measure the G-forces that Stapp experienced. Then a worker named Edward Murphy proposed using electronic gauges attached to Stapp's harness to measure the force exerted on them by the rapid deceleration. Murphy's assistant wired the harness and a first test was done with a chimpanzee. However, the sensors gave 0 readings. Then they noticed that an error had occurred during the installation. Each sensor had been wired exactly backwards. And then Murphy, referring to his assistant, formulates the following sentence. If a person has a way to do something wrong, they'll do it. What has evolved to this day as Murphy's Law. Although it is really an idea that can be extrapolated to all situations that occur in our daily life, in such a way that infinite derived laws arise. One of the better-known examples of Murphy's Law is the toast that always lands upside down, that is, with the jam or butter towards the ground. The curious thing is that it has been shown to be true about 100% of the time. Is this a proof that Murphy's Law is true? Well, not really. Contrary to what most people believe, the toast always falls on the spread side, not because the side weighs more, but because of the height of the table. In 1995, the scientist Robert Matthews, after more than 10,000 tests, was able to confirm it. Simply, it's because the toast has just enough time to do half a turn, but not a full turn. Matthews also showed that if the tables were 3 meters high, the toast would always land face up. So, in a way, that law would be reversed. But the question is, why don't we have 3-meter tables? Obviously, because they wouldn't be useful to us. But Matthews wondered, why aren't we 3 meters tall? The answer is that the maximum safe height for a bipedal being is 3 meters. Beyond that height, any fall could cause us serious injuries. The tallest person in history for which there is irrefutable evidence was the American Robert Wadlow, who reached a height of 2.72 meters and 200 kilos before he died. His large size and continuous growth during adulthood were caused by hypertrophy of the pituitary gland, so he didn't stop growing until his death. Robert needed splints to be able to walk and had lost sensitivity in his extremities. And even then, he had 28 centimeters left to reach 3 meters, which is considered the highest safe height. But back to Murphy. In the case of the toast, the law simply holds as a consequence of physical laws, but there are other cases that cannot be explained by this. One of them is the fact that the law is fulfilled only because we're aware of it. For example, imagine a magician who has practiced a trick 100 times in private, and it has always gone well for him, but precisely the day that he does it with an audience in front of him, it goes wrong. And it will almost certainly be due to the tension that can be generated by thinking that it could go wrong precisely on that day. But sometimes the law is fulfilled in ways that apparently have no explanation. One of the most famous cases is that of Mayor Somerford, who in February of 1918 was fighting in the fields of Flanders as a British officer. Suddenly, he was struck by a lightning that left him paralyzed from the waist down. Then, one day in 1924, while fishing in a river bank, a lightning struck the tree he was sitting on and paralyzed the right side of his body. 2 years later, on a summer day in 1930, Somerford had finally recovered enough to take a walk in a local park. That day while walking, he was struck by a lightning that permanently paralyzed him. He died 2 years later, but that would not be the end. 4 years later, during a storm, a lightning struck a graveyard and destroyed a tombstone. And who laid under that tombstone? Mayor Summerford. His story may seem like an evidence that bad luck does exist, and consequently, Murphy's Law, but probability disproves it. In fact, it is easier to be struck by a lightning than winning the first prize of the lottery. Each year, approximately 240,000 people are struck by a lightning, while 24,000 die directly. You may think that these are exaggerated amounts, but look at this map that shows the measurement of the number of cloud-to-ground lightning strikes per square kilometer in a year. What is remarkable and important about this map, apart from the immense amounts of lightning observed, is the fact that the areas with the highest density of lightning coincide with the most populated areas on the planet. So if you do the math, the case of the Mayor Summerford was not bad luck, but rather the verification that probability works. Probability can say how close a certain future event is. Every day, many things happen that are apparently not very remarkable, but from time to time, a remarkable event will occur. Of all the events that happen to us daily, there are some that are positive, others that are negative, and some that are neutral. The thing is that our brain remembers better those that are negative. And here's the key to understand Murphy's Law. It is fulfilled because if, for example, if you perform an action 9 times, of those 9, all 9 may go well for you, but if one ever goes wrong, your brain will remember the one that went wrong. It will always remind you of the time that it went wrong and not those 9 that went well. It is simply because of this that Murphy's Law is fulfilled. The second law of thermodynamics says that whatever is done in the universe tends to increase its entropy. Entropy is the amount of disorder of a system. A system being your house, the Earth, or the entire universe. Entropy is a physical magnitude that describes the fact that whatever you do causes energy to disperse more, searching for a balance. If you put together, for example, 2 pieces of metal, one cold and one hot, they will always tend to transmit their energy and equal their temperature, but not the opposite. 2 pieces of metal of the same temperature will never tend to share their energy. If you want to return to the initial state, that is, to make one colder and the other one hotter, you will have to use energy that during the process will be lost in the form of heat and cannot be used again. That is, to counteract the second law of thermodynamics, you will have to increase the entropy of the universe by creating disorder and at the same time fulfilling the law. To return to the initial state, you will have used more energy than there was initially. This causes all the energy of the universe to be distributed even more. That is, the energy of the universe increases, as well as the disorder. It is said that the fact that the entropy of the universe is always increasing implies that its disorder is also always increasing. And in a universe where every time there's more disorder, the events that could seem more unlikely can end up being probable. In such a way that anything you can think that can never happen to you may end up happening to you. So Murphy's Law, apart from just being a manifestation of how our universe works, is fulfilled by the simple fact that we tend to be pessimistic. So, be optimistic and avoid fulfilling the law. Thank you very much for watching the video, and goodbye.